Hello, and thank you so much for joining us for another Enneagram and Marriage podcast. Today, we're talking about sharing your light in a dark world. And I'm so glad we get to do this through the lens of the beautiful novel and Netflix portrayal of All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. I'm joined by Wes Hardin, who is my husband and who also felt a profound effect of watching this series after I explained the book and the series to him. So we watched it together a second time and his first time. And it was such a great gift to sit through and watch somebody who was trying so hard to be brave and strong during the worst of times. And maybe you feel in your life right now that it's a very hard time and you need encouragement. And today's episode is frankly that, to remind you of what is good, true, and beautiful, to set you straight back on track, and to do that with you, right? Because I'm doing that same journey. But before we get to that, if you need the help in your marriage, don't forget the Enneagram Summit is coming up March 5th through 7th. It's a free summit. It is in the show notes. And of course, you can do the upgraded paid option for the all access pass as well. But what the event is a conference that's virtual for you to process through all of the different pieces of your relationship, whether you're bored or lonely or just having so much conflict right now. And all these Enneagram teachers, myself included, have come together to share our expertise. So I'm grateful to be joined by therapist Ashton Whitmire Ober, Sarah Jane Case, we have Suzanne Stabile, we have Jesse Eubanks, we have the wonderful Elizabeth Bennett, the type 4 we had on our show here. And we also have so many other speakers as well, including Tyler Zach and Jackie Brewster and just Danny Cooper, you name it. If they've been on this show and they're an Enneagram expert, it's almost certain that they're going to be attending or in most cases speaking. So I hope you can join. And like I said, just come for free and sign up now so you don't forget and you can get all the news. Or make sure you get the all access pass so you can get our bonuses and PDFs and all the things we like to do extra for those who are like, I need more of a plan. So grateful. And know that as we try to share our lights and hope to share our lights, that one of the best ways we can do that is through this lens of saying, let's work directly so that if I'm with a peacemaker and I'm a protector, or I'm an introvert who also tends to be a type 2, but I'm self-pres, we can work with these different nuanced pieces and truly have a puzzle that now fits better. So, as we're trying to figure out how to shine your light, don't forget to do that together. And that's all again, March 5th through 7th. Find it in the show notes. Now, as we get started talking about relationships and shining our lights together, I thought it would be really cool to go over first just the ways that I see the big picture of the story, because some of you haven't seen All the Light We Cannot See. So I'm just going to give you a big picture view and then we'll get into the nitty gritty with Wes. But the big picture view is that we're set in Saint Malo, France, as well as some time in Paris and in a factory town in Germany, all around the 1940s or so, of just the early 1940s and then around 1944 as the war was ending. And we're set in all these different spaces with two protagonists taking each chapter. We have Marie Laure, a young French woman who's blind, and then we also have Werner, who is a young boy in the German Hitler Youth. And we have both of them sharing the tragedies of just life in this horrible time in history. And each of them has a story where, unfortunately, Werner is choosing to pursue his career and he's coming from a foster home and he's like, I have to achieve. And everyone is so proud of him in Germany that he's now making a name for himself. And we also have Marie Laure, this young French woman, and her father and her uncle and her great aunt, who are working with the French resistance and trying to make sure that they do anything and everything to stop the evils. So, as you can see, we have somebody completely under the influence of unhealthy social psychology, Werner, and then somebody else who's able to say, okay, this is really tempting. We could just go with the enemy here, or we could rise up and do what's right. And there were so many people, guys, in this time period who did this. And one of my favorite books is The Hiding Place with Corrie ten Boom. And oh my goodness, there's so many other great books that I have enjoyed. My brother and I share them sometimes, and he loves The Tattooist of Auschwitz, and I really have a lot of favorites. So if you ever want to trade favorite World War II books with me, you can. But this one is such a special story because I feel we don't often get to hear from somebody who is taken in by the Hitler Youth, and I actually think that Werner's story is my favorite of all. It is so tragic and sad to see somebody get taken in by evil and to become corrupt, and then to find the light that most of us, hope to see. And of course, in times like this, you don't even know that he'll ever see it. And to watch him walk through these dark, dark times and to come to find that light and to come to find choice, it is so beautiful to watch and also so tragic. So that is all the good things of the Enneagram 4 space. If you're a 4, you're probably fawning with me now and maybe have already seen it, or like, I absolutely have to read this or watch it. I will agree with you. If you have any 4 in you, you absolutely have to. France is a very decadent type 4 nation, and this story is set there and you're going to love it. But if not, it might be a great stretch for you anyway, because yes, Wes has an arrow to 4, but he isn't a 4. He doesn't have a 4 wing, and he loved it too, and it taught him things too. So I really want to encourage you to check this story out. As you can imagine, it also has these little pieces to make it more thrilling, like a Lord of the Rings-ish sort of jewel that's got to be returned and gets thrown into the ocean at the end. And I had done a little research and saw that Anthony Doerr had some of his notes from his earliest days of fantasy were from C.S. Lewis. And so I can see that element and I'm like, wait, what is that all about? But it doesn't detract from the beautiful main point, which is you feel like you're small sometimes. You feel like what you have doesn't matter, but it does. And so I just want you to know that please keep doing the good things. Please know that even if it feels insignificant or that you're humble or that nobody cares about your gifts, they do, and you matter. And that's the whole point of this whole series, was to let people know that every single life, however humble it is, has meaning. And the blind girl being the protagonist, whom everyone comes to life to protect, is evidence of that. So never feel like you're not enough. And I know one of my second life verse is 2 Corinthians 12:9, about how in our weaknesses, God's power is just seen. And you could just see that thread here so much when we allow ourselves to just admit, here's what I'm bad at, here's what I'm good at, and how we need a collective of everybody with our gifts so that no one is above each other, and we just show love and grace as we continue to pursue goodness, even in the face of death and evil. So let's talk to Wes about these concepts and more, and even have some fun with typing main characters now. Hey, I'm so happy to have you on the podcast today, Wes.
Me too. It's good to be back.
Yes, I am so happy we get to talk about this amazing series and book today.
It was
Oh,
amazing.
yes. And before we get to that, I had such a fun Valentine's with you at Pure Bar, especially.
Uh,
I told this
pure
audience
torture is more like it.
a dad joke. You're
It
so cute.
was terrible, but it felt so good afterwards. We felt really alive, and it was really a fun time. So some unique,
That's what I
Definitely won't forget it.
love. Yes, and that's what I always want everyone here to hear. That sexual instinct is so important for shaking things up. You just have to move things around in your marriage, and it just brings life. It's a creative sort of life energy that you get from moving things around in your marriage. So thank you.
Thank you for
Literally moving things around.
yeah, constantly thinking up new, crazy, fun things for us to do together. So
Yes, I don't like to get bored. And so it meant the world to me that you did that. And also that I don't have it need for it to be physical like that. Like, it was so fun that you said on one of our date nights that you would walk through this book and series with me.
yeah, well, I first sat through you telling me the entire story
Yes.
as we were at this French cafe around here. It's like authentic, like you're
Yes.
in Paris. This restaurant is so cool,
So good.
with this live accordion music playing and all these people talking, speaking French around us and stuff. And so you're like, I got to tell you about this story I'm reading right now. And so I heard the whole thing and I'm like, that actually sounds really good. So
Yes.
then you wanted to show me the series.
Yes. And I
You
really,
wouldn't read the book.
yes, and he did read some of
I
the
don't give
book
myself
with
permission to
me.
do that,
No,
unfortunately.
on the date night, I was just like, at this point, like, talking is over. We press play on the audiobook, and you were like, okay.
Yeah.
So, but like you said, you don't have the time
Yeah.
to go through it
Right.
all.
Yeah, we went out for ice cream after at
Yeah.
Jenny's Ice Cream, and you showed me the first chapter, and I was just all in. Like,
Yes.
this is really quality.
Yes, and I really wanted to share it here because if you haven't heard of this series, then it's a really good one for you and your partner to enjoy together on Netflix. And the music is cinematic.
Oh,
And
it's fantastic. The whole thing's a
yeah, the
masterpiece.
photography, I love
Yeah.
Mark Ruffalo as an actor, and then other actors were new to me, but he's one of my favorite actors anyway. So I was like, all right, I can trust this cast. This is going to be good.
Yeah. Ooh, just so moving. So moving. So such a beautiful message and just a beautiful artistic piece. Like the cinematography is just unbelievable
Yes.
and really well written, right? You
Hmm.
know, just thought out all this symbolism. The theme is just amazing. So
Yes.
took like what, 4 hours? Like they're like hour-long episodes or something close to it.
Yes, exactly. So we are ready for you to now jump into some questions with us. So thank you,
All
Wes.
right, let's do
And
it.
thank you guys for doing this with us. We'll type a few of the main characters at the end for those who are also watching with us or going to read with us. So the first
Is
question
this set to 1310? We want to make sure it's set to
Oh my
1310.
gosh. Yeah, that's the radio station frequency on the show and in the book. So, anyway, oh my gosh, I've already given you guys the preview for it before we came
Mm,
on. But, Wes, I want to talk to you about because it's so profound. I think, as the title says, all the light we cannot see,
mm,
it really applies to all the good
so
acts we do
much.
in our
Yeah.
lives and how when we do those good acts,
Hmm.
as even
Yeah,
little as they are, I know author Anthony Doerr wanted us to know they matter.
they do.
Now we know that this whole story, just as the title would help us to see, is all about the good deeds and the ways that we can help people if we just do the right thing, even though we're in a world of darkness. So,
Mm.
how does that impact you when you hear that title, when you think about that meaning?
Oh, it's just such a clever title and so rich. And of course, there's so many different ways that it's expressed in the movie. I love the idea of, light being like a way of expressing the good deeds that we do, like our lives. Jesus says, "Let your light so shine before men." Don't hide it under a bushel basket. Let it be like a city on a hill. And so
Mhm.
in this movie, or I'm sorry, in this series, you see a lot of different people who are shining their light in their own ways. They're glowing in their own ways.
Mhm.
Some of them more obvious than others. Some of them more visible than others. And you know, the main character is this girl who is not able to see light, like visible light, because she's blind, but
Mhm.
yet she knows a lot about the goodness in the world and the light in the world, and so she shares that. She
Mhm.
shares her light, even though she's not able to be seen by a lot of people because she's literally hiding out in this house
Mhm.
up in the attic, essentially,
Yeah.
hiding behind this radio.
Mm.
And she does these things that are literally saving so many lives and protecting the most precious treasure in all of France. And she's this unsuspecting little thing that nobody can see.
Yeah.
It's such a clever idea.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
then you have these bakers and these old women
Mhm.
and old men who are just like people who nobody suspects are capable of doing much in terms of the war, but they are making really
Mm.
important contributions. They're
Yeah.
really um, doing some things that are really powerful, and so they're letting their light shine in their own way, even
Mm.
though you can't
Mhm.
really see them. They're behind the scenes.
Yes.
In terms of their communities and stuff, they're doing things they're hiding, they're doing
Mhm.
things in secret with codes and
Mhm.
passing messages and loaves of bread and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So in that way, you see a lot of examples of people sharing their light, letting their light so shine, but in a way that a lot of people can't see.
Mhm.
So that was
Mhm.
an example.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really good example
Mm,
because we really notice together that sometimes we think as a society that people who don't contribute as much in the same traditional ways others do that are maybe younger or more able don't contribute. And instead, here you find purpose in serving those, but also that everyone has purpose, everyone has
everybody,
a gift
everyone.
even if they're helpless, it's a gift for
Yeah.
somebody else to be able to serve with them. Honestly, we know that from volunteer
Yeah.
research. So I found that to be one
Yeah.
of the other ironies while we're juxtaposing that
Uh-huh.
with the Nazis saying, meanwhile, you better be perfect, even to their own Hitler Youth.
Yes.
or you're getting killed or beaten up so badly to a pulp as some of the kids had
Oh,
happen to them who were part of the Hitler
it's
Youth.
brutal. Yeah,
Ugh,
it's kind of graphic. If you haven't seen it, it's if you're not comfortable with that kind of thing, just be warned. You know what I mean?
thank you. I never say
It's
so.
realistic. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They're trying to be realistic, and it is.
Yeah.
It's not like gratuitous stuff, but it's there.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where there's this scene when the Gestapo come and they are checking out Daniel LeBlanc because they see him, pacing the street, counting the steps, and they think he might be working for the resistance. Or they tell them, why the heck are you counting your steps? Are you working for the resistance? He's like, no, I'm building this model of the city so that my daughter can learn her way around. And so they want to prove, oh, really? Is she really blind? And they're like so mean to her. It's so sad. They say something like, well, sorry about your loss, that she's cursed with this blindness. And he's like, no, it's not a curse. It's a blessing. Remember that?
Mhm.
And he really helps her to believe that about herself and show her all the things that she can do, that she's able to do.
Mhm.
And like I said before, it becomes a great blessing because no one would ever suspect her because she's blind,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
And she's able to use this braille, which the soldiers can't understand, but she
Mhm.
can. And
Mhm.
it's really amazing how here's another example of how God uses the weak in this world, to
Mhm.
what some people might think are the foolish or the simple to confound the wise and the strong.
Mhm.
It's really a beautiful example.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful portrayal of that, and I'm so glad you caught that and had some
Yeah.
different even thoughts about that afterwards, because it's the kind of, I hope, piece that you will also have a sense of just, this is lasting. This is going to make me dig deeper.
Chew on it. When we
Yeah.
watch a movie or a TV show, I chew on it for like days. I just will think about it on my commute and stuff. And
Yes.
one of the things that came to mind is the way she is using the radio. Well,
Mhm.
first the radio blessed her
Mhm.
and Wernig and did I say his name right?
Werner.
Werner, yeah.
Mhm.
Uh the professor. Wernig, yeah. Wernie, whatever. So the professor reaches both of them with the radio show,
Mhm.
and then she gets to use that same radio to reach out,
Mhm.
to speak out and share light with whoever happens to be listening.
Mhm.
And you know, radio waves are actually part of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Yes, I was going to ask you that question
Yeah.
too, because I wanted you to talk to us about that, because that
Yeah.
was what first got me as I was studying physics. I think I shared it on this podcast before with Jack, but I was sharing with my son about the electromagnetic spectrum, and they were like, "Oh, there's so much light we can't see," and then I'm like, "All the light we can't see."
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So tell us about that. 'Cause you're
Yeah.
much better with this
Oh,
topic
dude,
than
I
me.
geeked out on that when I was thinking about it. So it's yeah. There's radiation is electromagnetic energy, and it has a whole wide spectrum. So it goes from, they range based on the size of their wavelength,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know. So radio waves are huge, giant waves. Some of the waves are literally hundreds of meters long
Mhm.
to the wavelength.
Mhm. Mhm.
And those are the kinds of waves they were probably using back then in the old days.
Mhm.
And then, you have smaller and smaller, like we use for FM radio, and then it goes to like uh, infrared, and then red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Like the color
Mhm.
spectrum is this really tiny, narrow band,
Mhm.
and then there's violet, and then ultraviolet, which is like radiation. And
Mhm.
then beyond that, other forms of radiation, like X-rays and
Mhm.
gamma rays, which are super tiny
Mhm.
and super high radiation.
Mhm.
But all of those are essentially light. They're all forms of light. We only see a really tiny, tiny, narrow band in the whole spectrum.
Mhm.
All the rest is invisible to us, you
Mhm.
know, but it is light that we cannot see.
Mm.
And the radio waves were light that no one could see, but that was being used
Mm.
to move the whole story along.
Mm.
Everything was around that. It's such a really awesome idea.
Yeah. And also the fact that communications like we're doing now can make a difference. All these places where we can give hope to each other. So keep listening to the
Mhm.
things that serve you in the way that will help you to serve others. Not just serve you, but help you to serve others. Um, You might feel like you're in a big machine this year with all of the elections, but the truth is there are little pieces of light. And I know that's what Anthony Doerr wanted from the book is he's like, I want every life to matter, and they
Mm.
do matter. And each one,
Yes.
however humble it is, he said, it matters. And
Mm.
that is just a beautiful message we can bring to our marriages.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk more about that on Wednesday. We're going to talk about bringing humility into marriage,
Mm.
because I think that's a very big key for how we can get along better as
Yeah.
couples. Werner talks about shame, the German Hitler Youth who is the male protagonist away.
Wernick.
Um, Werner wanted to be a scientist more than anything else. And later he said, ambition and shame can become inextricably linked in relationship if we forget people in the process.
Yeah, I think you think of ambition like it's a selfish goal, selfish ambition is what comes to mind, like
Mm-hmm.
some ambition is good if you're trying to move up so that you can provide better for your family or something. But
Mm-hmm.
but if you are stepping on people to get up to the top, that's not good. Then it's shameful.
Mm-hmm.
When you are pursuing your goals to the detriment of others, like regardless of how it affects others,
Mm-hmm.
using others to get there,
Yeah.
then you're being shameful, and you're
Mm-hmm.
uh I think that's what he's talking about. They're one and the same when you try to pursue it in the wrong way. The ends
Mm.
don't justify the means might be another way to
Yeah.
put it.
Yeah, that reminds
Yeah.
me of the Good Samaritan story where somebody's too busy in their ambition, whatever it is, to see the problem right before them.
Yeah.
And just
Mhm.
that's one of many examples that we can use of like, okay, social groupthink can take over. And, we know from psychological studies and social psychology that the more people that there are to disperse blame, the less likely we feel personally responsible to help.
Mm.
And I think this story reminds us of that with what happened to our world
Mhm.
in World War II, that it was like, they're not my problem.
You know, a lot of the evils that came out of World War II, we can see now looking back, were because people were having selfish ambition, maybe even with things that are socially acceptable, like I don't want to sacrifice, being embarrassed by standing up and saying I don't agree with this or that, you know,
Mhm, mhm.
and um, so if, good men do nothing, then evil gets to win, and evil will take over and conquer. And so
Mhm,
maybe that was another way he was saying it, is
mhm,
that
mhm.
if we don't stop and think about who's affected by this, even like you said, the Good Samaritan, who's being affected by me not taking notice of them because I'm pursuing my ambition, you
Mm,
know?
mhm. Yeah. And I would imagine you see that a lot in your work with the elderly as well. Just it's all over in different culture
Yeah.
groups, different people
Huh.
groups, that there's so many people that are not seen. And I think we all have to be mindful of how we leave some margin in our lives to do something.
Yeah, like with respect to medicine, like you said, I definitely see that I take care of mostly elderly patients in family practice. And so I have so many coming in after going to the emergency room or to see a specialist. And so many of them, they didn't get a lot of good attention. They didn't get a very thorough workup
Mm,
or treatment plan. They were just kind of like checked out really quick and then
mhm,
dismissed as soon as possible.
mm,
And I'm not saying anything against
mhm,
people who work in emergency rooms because they're amazing. They're
mhm,
heroes. Everybody's different. Not every single provider you see is going to take the time to give you the very best care that you deserve. And I'm just saying statistically, like if the older you are, the older that a person is, like if somebody's in their late 80s, it seems like sometimes they're looked at like, well, there's not a lot at risk here. I probably have a very low risk of getting sued. If something happened to this person, they're already about to die anyways.
mhm,
So we'll just do, the bare minimum and get going, that kind of without thinking about seeing every single person as made in the image of God and therefore worthy of our very best every single time.
Yes.
Uh,
And I know you do that. You
I
often
certainly try.
do that. And sometimes on our walks, it's so precious. You'll be like crying, near crying, because you care so much about
That
these
was
elderly.
not to be shared.
No, but seriously, I love that about him, where he's actually so
There's
seriously
some
caring about
really
these
hard
super
cases, really
elderly
sad.
people that you're like, I want
I
them to
know.
get the best care.
Well, some of them are like my grandmas and grandpas. It's like I've been
No.
seeing these people for almost 10 years,
Yeah, it's so
every
hard.
month or so, and
Yeah.
you get really close.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very great privilege to be
Yeah.
let into their lives like that. I have like hundreds of grandmas and grandpas, and I
Mhm.
love that about my job.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
And I know a lot of ER docs feel that way too.
Oh,
So
of course.
yeah.
You were just saying that's one example where it could be seen, and you have seen it happen, and
Yes.
reality is
Right.
real. We've
Yeah.
seen it. Another place I saw it was with. I often take time to go through my parents' dialogues, and I shared on my Substack a poem written by my dad last week. But what I didn't share, there's so much. It's so overwhelming to know how and when and what to share. But my mom wrote this piece on her mental health stay, and it was so bad because she's like,
Mm.
all the orderlies, if they took a liking to you, you might have gotten a little attention, but she was thrown in a room
God,
naked,
that's a
in
terrible example. Yeah.
isolation.
I know.
It was so dehumanizing. And 7 years later, she was writing an essay for me to share. It wasn't like a journal. It was, this is my treatment, that she'd sent in to try to get maybe even published. I don't know, but she was clearly writing it out and typing it out so that we would all see it.
It's
And so
crazy
that's why I'm
witness.
sharing it. She was like,
Yeah.
I don't have my self-esteem back after
Hmm.
7 years
Yeah.
because they took such from me. So I
Mhm.
think it's a reminder for all of us, like, group effect is very, very real,
Yeah.
and we have to be aware of it.
We're all, if we're honest, we're all capable of becoming monsters like those soldiers in the Gestapo were, God forbid. But if we allowed ourselves to go down that track for long enough, it's that potential's in there. And we have to work hard to
Mhm,
prevent even the inkling, even the slightest hint
mhm,
of that kind of, apathy and neglect and,
mhm.
you know, um, blindness to the light that those people carry,
Yeah.
that every single person you encounter carries,
Mhm.
to have eyes that see that,
Yeah.
and to be strengthening that in yourself, so that we can prevent anything like that from ever happening again,
Mm. Yes.
you know
Mhm. Yes, and I really, I know everyone listening is remarking with us about stories that you have in your life when you've seen it happen or you've gotten too busy. And so we're all reminded together about not missing the light that we can bring, not missing the light we can see in others, even if we've at times thought that they
Mhm.
might not have much worth. Just being reminded everyone
Mhm.
has worth, everyone is part of the story.
Yeah.
And this includes your spouse. Oddly enough, this is often the place where we discard it the most. But let me ask
There's a
you
light there, even
one
if you
final.
don't feel like you can see it.
Right? And that's why I stick around for Wednesday as I talk about humility in marriage and why that's so important. But on our last big question before we get to just a super quick typing, because it's not really about Enneagram typing today, but we did want to type a few little just
Oh, you
ideas for
got to.
personality. But final theme that I really wanted to talk about today is in the book and the show, they talk about how Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is the book that she's reading to hide codes in, and it certainly has a lot to do with the setting of San Malo. Just they're always at the ocean where the book is set as well. And there's secret codes being passed, just like these underwater emissions in Jules Verne, which was a book that I read years back, if you remember. And I think you did well. But I guess I wondered when we hear from Anthony Doerr about why he added this in, he says it's because this was her escape.
Hmm.
And reading this book was her escape during a terrible time.
Mm.
And a lot of people love to read. Others chose music.
Mhm.
Sometimes it lulled them in bad ways where they just listened to music and it dulled them away from what was important. So I was going to ask you, what do you feel like is helpful for you and maybe others, like your patients you've recommended when they're going through something stressful and you don't want to
Mhm.
dull them away from caring?
Yeah, no, that's really good. That's good. What's so funny is I just thought of this while you were talking about it, that when the pandemic
Hmm.
hit,
Hmm.
and we were all forced to isolate at home
Hmm.
and everything was shut down, I read Jules Verne's Around the World in 80
That's
Days because I was like,
funny.
I'm not able to go out and travel anywhere. We're all forced to stay home. So I'm going to
Yeah.
travel around the world with Jules Verne. And it was a really fun, yeah, book. It's really a good book. And then I got to watch the movie afterwards with Jackie Chan.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure that was funny.
Yeah, but yeah, reading is such a great escape, such a great stress reliever. Oh,
Yes.
definitely. For me myself, I mean, we really love outdoor stuff, and I love to go hiking. I love being out in the mountains. I love it. I love being in the woods, in
Mhm,
trails, and
mhm,
so we try to schedule that into our lives, like,
mhm,
3 to 4 times a year if possible.
mhm,
And we go out west or we go up north or something, and we try to find some cool place to go hiking.
mhm.
And so part of the escape day to day, since I'm not able to do that every day, is just thinking about it. Honestly, I have a Pandora playlist
Mm,
of songs that are about being out west or about hiking or about being, out camping.
mhm,
And we listen to them when we go out west and stuff like that, the
mhm,
same songs. And so when how music's so powerful, it just transports you. That was in the movie too. Claire de Lune, that
mhm,
amazing, beautiful piece,
mhm.
was a way that they escaped
Yes.
when there was chaos around them during the war. They would close their eyes with their headphones on and listen to that amazing song.
Mhm.
And so I think that's one of the ways I escape day to day. Like when I'm at work, I have, very busy schedule, sometimes very tough patients. And
Yeah.
when I'm sitting in there charting, I have my phone, with music playing,
Mhm.
and on will come, you know,
Pierre Gregory, Alan
Alan
Isakov.
Isakov and
Yes.
Lord Huron and
Mhm.
these other ones that make me think about being out west. And
Mhm.
so it helps me to escape.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I
gives
love
gives you that
that.
feeling, like
Yes.
I could just close my eyes and picture the Grand Tetons and
Hmm.
being in Yellowstone and stuff.
Oh, that's
Oh, it's
awesome.
great.
I love that you use
Yeah,
imagery, and I think that really
yeah.
helps you as you're a very visual type.
Hmm. Yeah,
So that's so cool.
I love it. I need
You
it.
do. I need more like mental. And I need the visual too. I don't get away as much as you do to vacation, but I do like our trips every year. And then I also love my woods out in the backyard. So I love to, we picked a home that had woods near it because that's so big for us.
Yeah,
Especially me. He likes the straight path, as I've talked about. And that sounds bad. I like a straight path too.
because it's right and good.
But I like the woods. They're messy, they're unpredictable.
Yes, I like it
And
too.
Hannah's always like, Mom, like the other day I was jogging in the woods and she's like, Where are you? And I was like, In the woods jogging. And she was like, Are you home yet? And I'm like, No, get off the call. Like, because I think I need that release sometimes just to get
Yeah,
away from it
right.
all.
Oh
So I
yeah,
think everyone has to find their way
got it.
out to
Mm,
get back in for a bit. And I did see the characters, even the protagonists, trying to do that. And I think that France is a very decadent nation. And so that was part of the messaging I took from the book. If we were to give an archetype, and I hear this said sometimes of France, that it was a very fourish nation. So there, were always moments for trying to still hit up the bakery or have delicious omelets and,
prioritize
really
that. Yeah, you
prioritize
see that in the
quality.
series. Yep.
Yeah, of
Hmm.
relationships, of food, of experiences.
Remember that line when the sister says to the brother, she says, "Don't you want to live before you die?" Remember that?
Yes, Manek.
He
Yeah.
had been like agoraphobic for 20 years, just sitting in the
Mhm.
house, this guy who had PTSD from
Mhm.
World War One. And so she's trying to get him to go out, go to the ocean, go see it, go to the bakery again. You've been holed up in here for all this time. And
Mhm.
so the girl, she convinces him finally to go, and it's a really beautiful thing. But
Mhm.
that's an example. It's like even no matter how bad it is, no matter how hellish, your life might be,
Mhm.
you gotta find, even if it's the smallest, simplest thing, that you can just focus on, savor, and enjoy just for a little piece of sanity. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yes, I do.
Something that's not going to be too unhealthy for you,
Mhm. Yeah.
but that is just a little tiny slice of heaven,
Mhm.
to get you by
Mhm.
while you're going through hell. And I think we all really need to fight for that. They did that well in the series,
Mhm. Mhm.
and we should do that for each other as couples. You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
sometimes you're going through a whole lot more than I am,
Mhm.
and vice versa, and we need
Mhm.
to help each other. Maybe help each other to see the light better that we
Mhm.
aren't seeing. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
you know.
And we need community when we're not seeing it together
Yeah,
because sometimes that's when I think couples and marriages break down. And
yeah.
we've just heard about two different ones in our small circle of couple marriages breaking down. And I think that that happens all the time throughout our, if you've been married any number of years, you've seen some of your couple friends not make it. And I don't want to have any judgment toward them. I just want to say, I think sometimes we're good at picking one another up when the one falls down. But I
Hmm.
think when we both hit it together, we have to have community help us.
Hmm.
So that's
Yeah, that's
important
true.
for all of us.
Yeah.
And that's why I do this podcast. That's why you are so social with friendships.
Yeah, I got a lot of friends. We're really active in our church. I have a small group I'm part of, and
Mhm,
it's really important to build community.
mhm,
People who are
mhm.
like-minded, who are positive, who are going to bring you up, keep lifting you up even when you're down. Yeah,
Mm.
I know. I got a good buddy who just reached out by text this morning.
Mhm.
They're really having a hard time in their marriage. And so we're going to have breakfast.
Mhm.
We're
Oh,
going to lift each other up,
and
and I'm going
fun.
to try to help him to
Mhm.
see some of the light that he cannot see right now,
Yes.
try to point it out to him.
Yes, that's so
Yeah.
good. But that's one of the pieces, that's one of the layers of a good, healthy support system is when you're both down, you need people to help you back up.
Mm,
But lastly, there's one more piece before we get into the typing. Sometimes it's like the one thing you have left is your freedom to choose whether you'll love somebody or be selfish and get out of pain. And I know that as a seven, of course,
mm,
that's something sevens sort of try to avoid. And I think that one of my favorite parts of the book was when her father was, spoiler, being tortured.
mm,
Um, they said, the Nazi over him said, I had to go to him at his end and see would he rather be tortured or give you up, and he would not give his daughter up, so I killed him. And that was a good model for me, like laying one's life down for one's friends and like really loving people so much that you would actually have pain is part of it all. And yes, I want you to get self-care, etc., like you just said,
mhm,
but I do think that one irony of the book and movie is that when the male protagonist, the German Hitler Youth Werner, who rises up to become one of the Nazi unfortunate leaders, even though he doesn't want to, he does end up killing a lot of people and doing a lot of destructive things. And
mm,
at the end, when he finally does something good, he allows himself to realize maybe I've never really lived and made a choice about my life until now. And even though it was a choice that would ultimately lead to his death, I mean, indirectly, it was a better way of living. He's like, oh my gosh, I just made a choice outside of my political sphere
mhm,
to do the right thing.
mm.
I made a choice and that felt so good. That was really living for him.
Yeah,
So making good choices, you might be the only one in your family, the only one in your community, the only one in your marriage, but make a healthy choice
yeah,
because you will never regret that freedom of doing what you knew was right.
that's right. Yeah, yeah, that takes a lot of strength. I mean, that is, especially if you've become deeply entrenched in a group, in a culture, in a social, group like that. It could be very powerful, very persuasive, and to overcome that, or to overcome like real deep, habits that we have of thinking or
Mhm.
behavior, that are not healthy. That's really, really difficult. And sometimes it takes like supernatural power to overcome it because it's just so strong. And
Mhm. That's why we have
um
12-step groups and people like you helping people with
yeah,
medications as needed.
yeah, medication can be
God,
helpful.
of
Yeah,
course.
counseling. Yeah, and God. And in the movie they do a really good job of showing this almost miraculous ability to overcome that and to be willing to sacrifice, your own life in order to help this girl. It's incredible. It's so beautiful.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it
It's
is.
really beautiful. I mean, there's not much more beautiful than that kind of a transformation in somebody,
Mm.
you know?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
It's
Oh, you have to see it. You have to read it or see it, depending on your time frame. So we're going to type five people briefly, and we'll each give our opinions on these five. And they are the dad, Daniel LeBlanc, then Marie Laure, the female protagonist, then Werner, the male protagonist, then Uncle Etienne, the radio owner, and then we have his
the
sister.
professor.
Yeah, he's also called the professor, and then his sister, Madame Manek. We'll start with Madame Manek.
Madame Manek. Okay, so I'm just gonna take a stab in the dark, and then you tell me what is the real answer
No,
because I'm
I'm
sure.
not. No, it's okay. I love sitting with it.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess maybe she's a nine wing one.
Mm,
Just guessing.
yeah.
She's very comforting. She's, really loving and supportive as like a motherly role in the house.
Mm,
And but yet she's very smart and she's very resourceful
mm-hmm,
and well organized, very well
mm-hmm,
organized,
mm-hmm,
needs to be like a
mm-hmm,
like a nine wing one,
mm-hmm.
so that she can
Lead
be
the
able to keep
resistance.
track of those. Yeah, she's like keeping track of all of these resistance communications, you know?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I actually think you typed her better than I did because I had her as a one.
Wow.
But I think that you're right. The diplomatic nine who is so able to merge. She's like, I'm merging with all those people who don't know these German soldiers, and I'm getting information through this unobtrusive old ladies society. And so I do think that there's a lot of nine there too. Obviously,
She's
huge
just so
peacemaker.
comforting.
Yeah.
you just want to give her a big hug.
Yeah, but she's so into the right thing,
Yeah,
and she is such a
right.
doer, and
She's
that's
got
where I
both.
have the one,
Yeah,
is she is such a doer. If you see
yeah.
it, you'll see that. Okay, so now we're gonna do Uncle Etienne, and I think he's a 5. What about you?
That's a really good question. I mean, he's the professor,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
and so when he's sharing on his radio program all of these wonderful things from science, and
Mhm.
yet also blending in this beautiful artistic music for Claire de Lune, and helping them to think and dream big. This makes me think like he's a researcher,
Mhm.
but yet he's also really in touch with his feelings and
Mhm.
his heart and his artistic side.
Mhm.
So he holds himself up, for
Mhm.
like 20 years in
Yeah.
his bat cave, if you will, in the
Yeah.
attic,
Mhm.
which makes me think like 5,
Mhm. Mhm.
but I
Yeah.
know that could be just like the PTSD,
Yeah, it's
on
extreme
top
because
of
of
any
that.
personality type.
Yeah, but he is a dreamer and he is somebody who's gifted in radio and loves that all the time. So I do see definitely the researcher 5. I can't
Yes,
imagine another type, even though
it's
of
gotta
course
be
it's
5.
it's gonna be extreme when
Probably
we
wing
have
4.
huge trauma
Yeah,
overlays from World
yeah.
War One. But yeah, he's
When he was younger, he said he was somewhat of a dandy
yeah, so there's his
as a
4 wing.
youth, wearing cologne and riding a motorcycle. He
Yes.
was a romantic with the ladies as a youth, he
Yeah.
said. So
Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
probably like a 5 wing 4.
Yeah, and we have to remember this is France where there's a lot of 4 overlay.
Right.
So they
Yeah.
all have a
Everything.
4 overlay. Every one of them does. But okay, what do you think about Daniel LeBlanc, Marie's father, who's a locksmith and also the creator of these beautiful models that he makes for his daughter to fly around the city with?
That's a tough one. He's very
He
good at
go.
making those models, like
Right,
super good.
right.
And he's also like a hero in this. I mean, he's very brave.
Mm-hmm.
He's willing to, he comes up with a plan. We need to get out of this city now. He sees it early,
Mm-hmm.
He thinks quickly about what can we do with these jewels and this big stone, and where do we go? Like, this makes me think 6, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who's ready with a plan, who's organized with that. They're
Mm-hmm.
in charge of the kind of like the security for the museum, the
Mm-hmm.
the, the
The
keys for
locksmith.
everything.
Yeah, good point.
And yet he's so brave in standing up for his daughter, being willing
Mm.
to, sacrifice himself like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
that's all the good things about 6s that I know. Their loyalty,
Yeah.
bravery,
Mm.
and yet they're not like fearful, but thoughtful about
Mhm.
serious things that could happen, and having a plan ready.
Yeah, and I think that
He did
you're
that.
right with his the ability to adapt very quickly and to be social is very 6. They're part of the dependency triad
Mm,
and they will lean on others as needed. And he went to a house where his uncle lived with his sister,
mm,
Madame Manek, and he said, "We need help. I'm here." But
mhm,
he also had, like you said, his own layered
mm.
work and part of the story. Now, I think this is a human layer that we haven't talked much about and we won't take much time on, but I do think he had a fatal flaw that he couldn't uh, necessarily let go of the jewel of France. I think he was trying to be dependent on the country and hold this huge burden of this huge jewel. But I think his daughter was able to let the stone go appropriately later,
Mm.
whereas he wasn't able to. So I think that there was a bit of greed wrapped into it too, just a little bit. That's his only flaw is he was holding that jewel. And it was like,
Yeah,
for those who aren't familiar with Lord of the Rings, I have to throw in, it was a little bit like holding the
yeah,
ring.
the
That was
precious.
the one part I was like, why did you do this to this really good World War II historical piece to add in this fantasy? But it was fun. It was a little bit fun to do
Yeah,
that. But anyway, I thought he
It
held on.
wasn't just it wasn't just that he wanted it for himself, though.
Right.
He was saying
Yeah.
for France.
Right.
This
I
is the
know.
most valuable treasure in all of France.
Hmm.
We have to do this for France,
Right, that's what
so
I mean, the nationalistic
he's
love of
kind of like a
France. It
fighter.
was
He's
a
a
little bit,
loyal,
yes, that's what I mean, the 6 was definitely seen.
Yeah,
So we could argue all
yeah.
day, should he have done
And
this?
his ability to make those models. Like, how many
Yeah,
6s do you know that are really good at making models,
yeah, very
building
detailed.
Legos,
Yes, so
and like
true.
doing that
Or
kind
who
of
have a
thing.
6
That's
wing. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Huge. Okay. So we've got him locked in. Locked in. Okay, that was so dorky. All
Yes.
right, go ahead and type maybe my 2 favorite characters. I think he's my favorite. It's hard to say, but why don't you type Werner? I'm
Warnick,
gonna give you stop.
that actor was so good. You're gonna probably see him in a lot of movies. He was an excellent actor.
Yeah.
Um, he has such a hard story. Oh my goodness. He starts off as this guy who's like he's literally a genius at building radios. This, and he's like obsessed with them, always working on them and stuff. So this makes me think not as much like four-ish
Mhm.
type of a person, or a three or a two. I mean, he seems to me more like a five or a six in that way.
Mhm. Mhm.
He he's also someone who really appreciates the professor's
Mhm.
broadcasts.
Mhm.
He loves to listen to the music, and he remembers his poetic, artistic expressions about all the
Mm.
light we cannot see and all of the other beautiful things that he says.
Mhm.
And so, in that sense, it makes me feel like he's really a heart type.
Mm.
Um, so I don't know. I mean, I know this sounds very similar to the other guy, but to me, it sounds a lot like he's probably a like a five wing four. That
Mm.
sounds like maybe he's supposed to be. Maybe he's like a protege of the professor, because you see that in the show.
Yes, and he
He's like
calls
his
him his
best student.
father. He said, "That's my
Yeah, he said
father.
that's
I
my
never
father.
knew him."
Right.
Yeah.
So he wants to be like him,
Mhm.
and they have very similar stories in that they're both, really great at the radio, and they both really appreciate these other ways of using the radio.
Yeah.
So maybe that's intentional. They're both
Mhm.
very similar.
Yeah, I think it is. That's a great reminder. And also, it's a great reminder to anybody who maybe didn't have a great relationship listening with your father, or anybody
Yeah.
here, because,
Uh,
or mother, where you can find people to mentor you in your community,
yeah.
and really allow yourself to be blessed by them like he was by him. That's
Yes.
so cool because he
Yes.
didn't have anybody. And so he
Yeah.
needed to rely on a voice
Thank
he'd
God.
never known on the radio. But the truth was, he did get to know him later.
Yes.
And we were giving it all away, so don't worry.
Yeah.
You'll still love watching it because you already heard
If
him
you
say,
haven't seen it,
I already told him everything before he even saw it, and he loved it.
right. Exactly.
So okay, now our
Had to
final,
see it for myself.
you had to see it. Okay, so but this is about all the light we can't see. But anyway, so now we're gonna do the main character, Marie Laure LeBlanc,
Muddy.
and I had her as a type 4. How about
Type
you?
4. Okay. Yes. Well, she is such a beautiful soul, you
Mm,
know,
mhm,
who is really, really listening to people,
mhm,
really trying to really savor everything. You can tell, you can just see that as
mhm,
part of who she
mhm,
is.
mhm,
Um, the way she savors oysters, you
mhm,
know, the
mhm,
way she talks about the sounds of the ocean,
mhm,
in this really artistic way, like it sounds like someone sighing or something. She says, like someone breathing in and out.
mhm.
And throughout the whole movie, she does that. Those are all, like, to me, like very four qualities.
Yeah.
She makes really deep connections with everyone.
Mhm,
She wants to go there in
mhm,
all of the conversations and
mhm,
talk about feelings, and why people feel the way they do about things, like her uncle,
mhm, mhm.
and like our daughters could just get right through, and win them over right away, and she won them over, and
Yeah.
um so I think that's a really great assessment.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad. And I think
uh
she represents sort of the heart of France in that way, that she,
the
um,
heart of France.
yeah, she
Yeah.
really has a beautiful,
Huh.
decadent, creative heart that
Yes.
deserves being protected. And oh my
Wow.
gosh, it's just
That's good,
the
Chris.
things that people would shame, she will show you.
Mm,
Don't shame
mm-hmm.
people. So it was good. Thank you so much for walking through this with me, Wes.
That was
I
fun.
can't thank you enough.
I
This is
love
the kind
chewing
of
on
thing
it.
I could think about all day. So I'm
Yes.
glad for you guys to be with us too on this episode. Please let me know what you think of it, or if you agree with our typing, or any
Yes.
other insights you got from this. Oh my gosh, I wish we could just do a book club on this. We can't, we don't have the time, but I would if I
Watch the
got,
series,
yes.
read the book,
Hmm.
even just pull it up on Pandora or Spotify and listen to the
Oh, the
soundtrack
soundtrack, it's
while
epic.
you're doing something, while you're doing your paperwork or your chores or whatever it is. It's beautiful.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks
and
for
maybe
coming.
we'll see you another time.
Yes, I hope you'll come back and do another episode with us when we find
Let
something else.
keep shining your lights out there, people. Let it glow.
Thank you guys so much for taking part in this episode as you analyze with us how characters and evil and good all form. Try to make a plan in your mind for something good you're going to do this week. And think about you and your partner, how you have these two circles of influence in what you're good at. And try to think of a way that those circles can become a bit concentric and line up to where you guys can share something together. I think that is a beautiful gift when we can work as a team like those did in the story in the French Resistance and in real life. And I just want you to be able to have that too, where you are not just one cog, but that you're working together with others to make an even more beautiful display of goodness out there. We need it. So thank you so much. Know we have our glow guides. If you ever need a clue about how your pairs work together, or my book, The Enneagram and Marriage, Your Guide to Thriving Together in Your Unique Pairing, make sure you check out the show notes for the free Ennea Summit. And thank you so much for joining for this episode today. It meant the world. Bye bye.